British history. There's a lot to talk about. This here is the front cover of my recently published update of a history book I've published many years ago, and a new version came out last year, and now there's a new update. So I thought I'd do a quick video to talk about the book and what I'm trying to do in the book. First of all, that's the front cover, which has got the flags: England, Scotland, Wales, the UK. I thought it quite nicely the way that the words British and history intersect there. If I just quickly read the blurb, it says British history stretches from the origin of Stonehenge 5,000 years ago to current controversy surrounding Brexit and the future. First published in 2008, this panoramic survey of themes in our history, along with their contemporary relevance, has been expanded and revised. The development of the states of England, Scotland and Wales, along with their unification as Britain, are explained. The progress of the nation takes in Boudicca's rebellion against the Romans, legends of Arthur and Alfred the Great, the troubles of Ethelred the Unready, the reputation of Richard the Lionheart, reportage by Samuel Pepys, and the supposed madness of George III. Combining profound events with trivia, this kaleidoscope of stories is a thoroughly entertaining popular history. So the book, what I'm aiming for, is a book where people who've got a bit of knowledge of British history and want to learn more and how it all fits together. It's 154 pages long, so people can read in the space of a few days. You can read the book and get a much better knowledge of how it all fits together. Or for people who already know quite a bit about history, I think I've come up with some interesting alternative ideas and theories about things. So hopefully there'll be something to keep people entertained and amused. And so what I thought I'd do is just quickly talk about the main themes that I touch upon. What I'm doing is it starts with Stonehenge and literally goes right up to events a few weeks ago and the unfolding tale of Brexit. So for each chapter, I will focus on a few major events and personalities of a particular era, but also give like an overview so it all links together. So although the chapters are focused on a particular personality or event, the book together does give you quite a good overview, I feel. And it's not just English history, it is Britain, so you've got the way that England, Scotland and Wales interact with each other and form the state of Britain, and also issues in the last 20 years about devolution of power and the future of the nation. So if I just talk about some of the themes, this book starts with Stonehenge, then you get Boudicca's rebellion against the Romans, then a bit more about the Roman era with Hadrian's Wall, the introduction of the idea of St. George, who lived far away in Palestine. Well, he was a Palestinian. It was actually Palestine at the time, but had a great effect on Britain. The next chapter looks at Cerdic of Wessex and the theory that he's the historic person behind King Arthur. Then there's a chapter called Anglo-Saxon Scots and Welsh, which looks at the sort of the development of the states of Britain, following the sort of between after the Romans are gone, but before they were fully United States. Then there's a chapter about Egbert, who's sometimes viewed as the first king of England, and a look at sort of like the theory behind whether he is or isn't, and the anomalies there. And then there's a little chapter about St. Swithin, the saint associated with rain and his lasting influence. Then there's a bit about Alfred the Great and his battle and the battle of his descendants in the Wessex and English monarchy against the Vikings. I'm looking a bit distracted because my lovely Debbie is wandering in and doing a little dance. Very lovely. Hello dear, you going to say anything today? No, she's not. Sometimes she chats in the videos, but not at the moment. Oh, she's looking at the washing at the moment. Probably my turn to sort out the washing in a minute. Right, where did I get to? Oh, Ethelred the Unready, he's one of my favourites, and King Canute, who followed him, the the stories surrounding their battles and reigns. Then there's a piece about the Norman Conquest and the Domesday Book. And then we move on to Richard the Lionheart and his complicated family relations. The Plantagenets were known as the Devil's Brood. Then there's a piece about the Magna Carta and the development of British legal and parliamentary system in the medieval era. Then we get the peasants are revolting. Yes, in 1381, the Peasants' Revolt, which was against the poll tax. It was the first organised rebellion by the ordinary people against a corrupt government. Then we move on to the Wars of the Roses, and then the religious controversies of the Tudor Reformation, and the tragic tale of Jane Grey, who was made queen against her will in a sort of political machinations, and was sadly executed at the age of 16, despite being innocent of the charges against her. Then we move on to the Stuart Era, Civil War, a Republic, and a lot of it was reported at the time by Samuel Pepys, the famous diarist. So I look at the way in which he reported things. Then we move on to Hanoverian Britain, and perhaps the most famous figure from there is George III, whose ailments were dramatised in the film The Madness of King George. So I look at the historic facts behind the film and the nature of his ailment, which has baffled medical science since it happened, really. Then we move on to the Victorians and the leap in the dark and the introduction of parliamentary reform, increased suffrage. Then we're on to the First World War and also the Christmas truce. Debbie's still doing a strange dance over there. The Christmas truce at the start of the First World War, a very poignant football match between British and German soldiers. The next chapter looks at one of the darkest eras in our history, the appeasement of Nazi Germany by misguided British ruling class who thought that Germany was going to be a bulwark against Soviet communism, and then realised too late that Hitler and his regime were a serious threat to Britain, and the battle to save the very future of the nation in the Second World War. Postwar Britain looks at the election of a majority Labour government in 1945, the economic and social reform that government introduced, including the NHS, of which we can all be very proud. And then it looks at further developments over the next decades, including the British entry into Europe, the political debates about Europe, the terrible legacy of Thatcherism. And then the final chapter is called A United Kingdom with a question mark, the road to Brexit, which I touched on this earlier in the video. I look at the political state of Britain in the early 21st century. Are we a united or a divided nation? How did we get to the point where a referendum voted for 3 years ago for people voted in the referendum 3 years ago to leave the European Union, and how 3 years later that hasn't happened, which is a whole other story which I've talked about in a couple of other videos. So hopefully that's been of some interest to people. So again, there's the cover of the book, and hopefully people might be interested in checking it out. I'll probably do some other videos about specific aspects of that I've talked about in the book, because I've always been a great enthusiast for history, and I really enjoyed writing the book and enjoyed talking about it, and hope other people enjoy it too. So thanks for watching, and good night. Bye.